Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Tanvi Taneja. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Russian President Vladimir Putin expresses full support to India in its fight against terrorism, emphasizes that perpetrators of Pahalgam attack and their supporters must be brought to justice. Japan too backs India's fight against terrorism. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh meets his Japanese counterpart General Nakatani in New Delhi to strengthen bilateral ties. Germany's Social Democrats SPD back coalition deal with CDU-CSU Conservatives in the final step to form a government. Chancellor-to-be Friedrich Merz promises Germans a reliable government. Russian President Vladimir Putin has called Prime Minister Narendra Modi and strongly condemned the Pahalgam terror attack. President Putin conveyed deepest condolences on the loss of innocent lives and expressed full support to India in its fight against terrorism. He emphasized that the perpetrators of the heinous Pahalgam attack and their supporters must be brought to justice. Both leaders reiterated their commitment to further deepen India-Russia special and privileged strategic partnership. Prime Minister Modi conveyed greetings to President Putin on the celebration of the 80th anniversary of Victory Day and invited him for the annual summit to be held in India later in the year. India's Defence Secretary met Prime Minister Narendra Modi earlier today as per sources. Separate meetings were also held between Prime Minister Modi and Chief of Air Staff Air Chief Marshal AP Singh and Navy Chief Admiral Dinesh K. Tripathi at his residence over the weekend. This follows a high-level meeting chaired by Prime Minister Modi earlier last week, which was attended by Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, Chief of Defence Staff General Anil Chauhan and 3 service chiefs. National Security Advisor Ajit Doval was also present at the meeting. Meanwhile, India has announced a series of measures, including putting the Indus Water Treaty in abeyance to send a strong message to Pakistan for its support to cross-border terrorism. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh today held a bilateral meeting with his Japanese counterpart, General Nakatani, in New Delhi. Both sides exchanged views and ideas on the current regional and international security situation and discussed ways to further deepen the bilateral defence cooperation. The two sides condemned terrorism in all its forms and emphasized the need for enhanced collaboration and joint efforts to counter cross-border threats. General Nakatani expressed solidarity with India in the wake of the Pahalgam attack and offered full support to India.
I recall our meeting at Vientiane, Laos in November last year, where we decided to expand defense cooperation in industry, technology, and interoperability between the armed forces. At the outset, I would like to thank the government of Japan for their strong expression of solidarity with India in the wake of the Pahalgam terrorist attack.
Further, Rajnath Singh noted that India shares a special strategic and global partnership with Japan.
Excellency, I take this opportunity to compliment you for your immense contribution in deepening of the Indo-Japan defense relations. You had earlier laid foundations for a strong bilateral defense partnership by concluding defense equipment and technical cooperation agreement and the protection of classified military information agreement.
Earlier, the visiting Japanese dignitary General Nakatani laid a wreath at the National War Memorial in New Delhi. He was also accorded a Guard of Honor. India and Japan share a long-term friendship, which has further gained qualitative momentum after the elevation of this collaboration to special strategic global partnership in 2014. Defense and security are important pillars of the ties between the two countries. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar interacted with scholars of the 4th Kautilya Fellows Programme 2025. The minister spoke about India's rising capabilities and deepening contribution to the world as an economic player, a development partner, a talent hub and a first responder. Dr. Jaishankar also spoke on how the world's perception of India has evolved over the years. India's Minister for Finance and Corporate Affairs, Nirmala Sitharaman, is on a visit to attend the annual meeting of Asian Development Bank in Milan, Italy. On the sidelines of the ADB annual meeting, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman held bilateral meeting with Masato Kanda, President of the Asian Development Bank. Sitharaman emphasized India's push for private sector-led growth backed by key reforms like that of the GST, Goods and Services Tax, corporate tax cuts and infrastructure projects. She invited the ADB to explore new financing models in India. Kanda reaffirmed ADB's commitment to support India's development vision inspired by Prime Minister Narendra Modi's goal of a developed India, Viksit Bharat, by 2047. Next updates on the Israel-Hamas conflict. The Israeli Security Cabinet, led by country's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, has approved a gradual expansion of the military offensive against Hamas in Gaza. This development comes amid heightened tensions and a significant military build-up, with tens of thousands of reservists being called up to intensify the operation. The Israeli army aims to destroy Hamas infrastructure both above and below the ground, while increasing pressure to secure the return of hostages. Meanwhile, a new plan for aid distribution in Gaza has also been approved, although the timing of aid delivery remains unclear. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has vowed a response to Yemen's Houthis and their Iranian backers after the group struck the area of Israel's main airport, injuring 8 people. Several international airlines suspended flights to Israel, and hours after the strike, Yemen's Houthis, who claimed responsibility for the attack, promised more such strikes and warned airlines to cancel their flights to Israeli airports.
As far as the trade routes, obviously we're being challenged. The whole world is being challenged by the Houthis, including in the dastardly attack they did today near Ben Gurion Airport. We will not tolerate it. We will take very strong action against them. And we always remember that they act with their patron Iran's direction and support. We will do what we need to do to take care of our security, to respond effectively, and to give Iran a due warning that this cannot continue.
Iran has meanwhile warned that it will strike back if the US or Israel attacks. Iran's Defense Minister Aziz Nasir Zadeh said on Sunday that Tehran would strike back if the United States or Israel attacked. Nasir Zadeh's comments came after Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vowed to retaliate against Iran for the Houthi group firing a missile that landed near Israel's main airport. Echoing Iran's official stance, Nasir Zadeh said Houthis act upon their own motivations, and the Iranian defense minister said that Iran has no hostility towards neighboring countries, but in case of an attack, the US bases located in the region will be considered targets by Tehran. In another update, Iran has unveiled a new solid-fuel ballistic missile, terming it Iran's latest defense achievement. Iran's state television reports the solid propellant Qasem Basid ballistic missile has a range of at least 1,200 kilometers. The new missile was shown after Tehran and Washington held Oman-mediated talks on Iran's nuclear program on 3 consecutive Saturdays from April 12th. Iran has ruled out discussions with Washington on its military and defense capabilities, including its ballistic missile program. On to the Russia-Ukraine conflict now. On the possibility of a truce, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on Sunday said that a ceasefire with Russia was possible at any moment. Zelensky also called on his allies to apply greater pressure on Moscow, else Russian President Vladimir Putin would not take any real steps to end the conflict. He added that a ceasefire should last at least 30 days to give diplomacy a real chance.
We
believe that ceasefire is possible at any moment, even starting today, and should last for at least 30 days to give diplomacy a real chance.
Earlier, Putin announced a 3-day ceasefire over May 8th to 10th during commemorations for the anniversary of the end of the Second World War in Europe, saying that it would test Kiev's readiness for a long-term ceasefire. Across continents, speaking to reporters, US President Donald Trump said on Sunday that he and his advisors have had some good discussions about Russia and Ukraine in recent days without elaborating.
We've had some good conversations on Russia and Ukraine over the weekend, over the last few days actually, but we've had some very good conversations on Russia and Ukraine. There's a lot of hatred there, I will tell you, between the two parties and between even the generals. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of hatred, but we've had some very good discussions over the last few days.
US President Donald Trump confirmed on Sunday that he had offered to send US troops to Mexico to assist in combating drug trafficking. The offer was revealed by Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum, who stated that she had declined the proposal. Trump explained that the offer stemmed from the severe impact of drug cartels, which have been responsible for thousands of deaths. Speaking aboard Air Force One, Trump emphasized that the US would have been honored to help if Mexico had requested assistance in tackling the cartels. While Sheinbaum rejected the idea, citing Mexico's sovereignty, the offer reflected growing concerns of the rising influence of cartels in both countries. As violence related to drug trafficking continues to escalate, discussions on international cooperation remain a contentious issue. On to Europe now. To boost European science research, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen announced on Monday a €500 million incentive package aiming to make Europe a magnet for researchers. Europe hopes to lure top US scientists disgruntled with US President Donald Trump. Speaking at the Choose Europe for Science conference in Paris, Ursula said that the €500 million package aims to make Europe a magnet for researchers. She also said she wanted EU member states to invest 3% of their gross domestic product (GDP) in research and development by 2030. The announcement comes at a time when Trump administration is threatening to cut federal funding for Harvard and other US universities.
Science is an investment, and we need to offer the right incentives. This is why I can announce that we will put forward a new €500 million package for 2025 to 2027 to make Europe a magnet for researchers. This will help support the best and the brightest researchers and scientists from Europe and around the world. We aim to create a new 7-year super grant under the European Research Council, ERC, to help offer a longer-term perspective to the very best. Through the ERC, we are already supporting researchers who relocate to Europe with a top-up beyond their grant. We are now doubling the amount they can receive this year, and I want to extend this support for 2026 and 2027.
Eurosceptic George Simeon emerged victorious in the first round of Romania's presidential election rerun on Sunday as per initial results. The election, viewed as a measure of the growing influence of Trump-style nationalism within the European Union, saw Simeon leading with around 40% of the vote. Bucharest Mayor Nicusor Dan came in second with approximately 21% votes. Simeon described his victory as a triumph for Romanian dignity, symbolizing hope and belief.
Mă înclin.
I bow to the Romanians outside the country's border who turned out to vote in large numbers and traveled hundreds of kilometers to show that they are proud because they are Romanians. I will remain devoted to them in everything I do, because it is not my victory, but the victory of the Romanian people. I will keep my word because Romania needs his wisdom and vision, and because I do not want power for myself.
poporului român.
If final results, including votes from the diaspora, confirm this trend, the two will face off in a runoff on May 18th. Benefiting from a wave of popular anger against mainstream leaders, Simeon opposes military aid to neighboring Ukraine, criticizes the EU leadership and says he's aligned with US President's Make America Great Again MAGA movement. You're watching DD India Live, still to come on this show. Donald Trump orders 100% tariff on non-US made films, calls Hollywood crisis a national security threat. And it's end of an era for Skype. Once a leading video calling platform is set to shut down on May 5th.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy, always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the Economic Brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
And in news just coming in, India has appealed to the Asian Development Bank to stop funding to Pakistan. Indian delegation led by Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has met the ADB president. Finance Minister Sitharaman also met the Finance Minister of Italy. Both leaders discussed creating international pressure on Pakistan. This news is as per sources in the Finance Ministry. And we are now joined by DD India correspondent Ajay Mishra on the phone line. Ajay, now in a series of steps, India asking to put a funding freeze by the ADB for Pakistan in the fallout of the Pahalgam terror attack. What are your sources telling you? Can we expect a positive reaction from the ADB in this regard?
We had the confirmation from Ministry of Finance that the Finance Ministry, the delegation headed by none other than the Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has met ADB President today, and they have reiterated that the funding to the Pakistan should be stopped immediately because we understand that the Pakistan is already in the grey list of FATF, which means that it is using the funds for the terror activities, and India is likely to oppose the proposed loan by IMF also. So not just ADB, but IMF and World Bank, from where the Pakistan is likely to get some extended facility of loans, is likely to be opposed by India. And besides ADB, the Indian Finance Minister also met the Italian counterpart. And Italy is a very, very important part of the European Union. So all out efforts are being made from the Indian side to cut off not just diplomatically, but on the financial side also, so that no financial incentives are being extended to the Pakistan, and it is the time and again the India has reiterated that the funds being flown, being sent from the IMF and the World Bank kind of agencies, ADB kind of agencies, is being used for the terror financing, and that's why India have opposed it. And not just ADB, but also the very important nations in European Union. We also understand that the finance minister is also likely to meet her counterpart from Japan, from Bhutan, and other countries who are there for this governors meet. And this is one of the top agenda from the Indian side. the ADBs not to extend the loan facility for the Pakistan.
Okay, so India is making all efforts to corner Pakistan diplomatically, and like you mentioned, it is trying to corner Pakistan at various available global fora, because New Delhi believes that Islamabad has to stop exporting terror. Thank you very much, Ajay Mishra, for joining us on this story. So, Indian delegation led by Finance Minister has met ADB President, Asian Development Bank President Kanda in Italy, asking them to stop their funding for Pakistan. German Chancellor in waiting Friedrich Merz, an upcoming Vice Chancellor and Finance Minister of the Social Democrats Lars Klingbeil, signed a coalition deal on Monday. The coalition contract lays out a policy roadmap for the next 4 years. In a separate development, Germany's new coalition government will be sworn in on May 6th with Merz's close allies and corporate executives to take charge. Lars Klingbeil from the Social Democratic Party of Germany is appointed as the upcoming Vice Chancellor and Finance Minister, with Boris Pistorius from the SPD set to remain as the Defence Minister. So this is a developing story. Friedrich Merz has promised reliable government for Germany as a new government will be sworn in tomorrow. Meanwhile, Alternative for Development AfD party in Germany has filed a lawsuit challenging domestic intelligence agencies' classification of it as extremist. The domestic intelligence agency's move, announced on Friday, allows for enhanced surveillance of the AfD, the largest opposition party in the Bundestag. This new classification could also pave the way for German lawmakers to limit or even block public funding to the party. In response, the AfD has condemned the decision, calling it a politically driven attempt to undermine and criminalize the party. On the other hand, Kremlin's response adds another layer to the controversy, positioning the move within a broader narrative of Europe being overly restrictive toward political forces that don't align with the mainstream. Staying with Germany, the country with the second largest gold reserves in the world, but not all of the country's reserves are actually stored within Germany's borders. Now, some experts are calling for the government to bring all the gold back home. Lars Holter is with Deutsche Welle and joins me from Berlin now on the story. Lars, how much gold are we talking about here and where is it?
Thanks for having me. Well, the numbers are truly staggering here. Germany holds 3,361 tons in gold reserves. They're worth around 300 billion euros. And only half of that is actually stored in Frankfurt with the Bundesbank. That's about 1,700 tons. Another 400 tons are with the Bank of England in London. And finally, there are just over 1,200 tons with the Federal Reserve in New York. And that is where things have gotten dicey, because the Fed, as trustworthy and independent as this venerable institution has been for hundreds of years, it's come under scrutiny ever since US President Trump has tried to gain influence over its policies. And we've just seen it again just over the past 2 weeks when Trump threatened to fire Fed Chief Jerome Powell. Then, of course, he stepped away from that threat again, but it was enough to make some people doubt that the gold is truly safe in the US. And then there's, of course, that other anecdote where Donald Trump recently said that he himself, as well as Elon Musk, would take a trip to Fort Knox to check if all the gold is really there. Now, that might have been a joke, but it's a weird one. There is no reasonable doubt that the gold is there. Germany's reserves, however, are, as I said, not in Fort Knox, but with the Fed in New York. But joking like that just doesn't make anyone trust you more, especially since Trump's presidency so far has already led to people and nations losing trust in the US as a whole.
So will Germany is, wanting to move its gold from New York to Frankfurt then?
That is highly unlikely, and for a number of reasons. First of all, the Bundesbank, that is the federal bank and officially the holder of these reserves, They're saying that indeed they fully trust the Fed and don't see a reason to move the gold. Also, doing so wouldn't be easy. Over the past 20 years, Germany did actually move some of its gold around, taking all that was stored in Paris, for example, and they brought that back to Frankfurt. And also 675 tons were relocated from New York, but that was really complicated at the time. It took top secret shipments. Some of the gold had to be melted down and reworked into new bars. All of that cost 7 million euros just in operative costs. But mostly, one has to keep in mind why so much of Germany's gold was ever brought to the US in the first place. And that is because New York, much like London, is an important trading place for gold. And since gold is essentially insurance for the country and should be there to be sold in an emergency, it's obviously a good idea to keep it where it can easily be sold, and that is London and New York.
Okay, thank you very much. Lars Walter joining us from DW Berlin. Now, in a surprise announcement on Sunday, US President Donald Trump declared a sweeping new trade policy targeting the global film industry, Hollywood. Posting on his Truth Social platform, Trump stated he is directing the Department of Commerce and the US Trade Representative to impose a 100% tariff on all movies produced outside the United States, citing what he called a devastating trend of American studios filming abroad. Trump vowed to bring Hollywood back home. Industry leaders reacted with alarm, warning the move could upend international box office markets and strain US relations with foreign partners. Film production companies are bracing for massive disruptions, while streaming giants have begun re-evaluating international content pipelines. Skype, the internet calling service that once revolutionized global communication, will cease operations on Monday as owner Microsoft retires the platform. Microsoft announced this decision in February, citing a need to simplify its communication offerings and concentrate on the Teams service. So it's an end of an era for the platform Skype. That's all for this edition of DD India Live. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. Connect with us on our different social media handles at DD India Live. And you can also download our DD India mobile app for quick news and updates from India and the world. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. You can scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Tanvi Taneja from all of us here in New Delhi. Thank you for watching. Namaskar.